During the 1800s, many people were still convinced blacks weren't human. The abolitionists aimed to disprove this notion and get people to believe that blacks and whites are equal. Abolitionist ideas became prominent in northern churches in the 1830s. The Second Great Awakening led to massive religious revivals that factored into the later emergence of abolitionism. Abolitionism created sectionalism among states.
In 1829, David Walker, a free black man, wrote an appeal to the colored citizens of the world in Boston, Massachusetts. His writings urged extreme abolitionist militancy. He urged slaves to revolt against their masters and defend themselves. In the early 1830s, Theodore Weld, William Lloyd Garrison, Arthur and Lewis Tappins, and Elizur Wright, whom were all affected by the Second Great Awakening, wanted immediate emancipation. They were all leaders of the abolitionist movement. Garrison in Boston published The Liberator, which supported free African Americans. Maria Stuart was the first to deliver a public lecture on this topic in 1831. Stuart was a free black woman from Boston, Massachusetts, who spoke out against slavery. Stuart was seen as a hero and a role model by the slaves. Many others began to speak about the horrors of slavery, such as Frederick Douglass, Wendell Phillips, and Lucy Stone. Wendell Phillips was one of many who was unsure about the abolition of slavery, but was convinced after the murder of innocent abolitionist Elijah Lovejoy in 1837.
States reacted differently to the abolitionist movement. In the South, Georgia banned the slave trade in 1817, and in Charleston, South Carolina, slaves were forced to wear identification tags starting in 1820. The Missouri Compromise also occurred in 1820, where one state would be made free and the other a slave state. The North, however, reacted in a completely different way. Pennsylvania created the anti-kidnapping law to protect free blacks, and New England overall was a hotbed for abolitionist sentiment. It was also in Philadelphia where the first anti-slavery society convention took place. In Albany, New York, the Liberty Party, a political party, held the first national convention for fighting abolition in 1839. In the end, the case Prigg versus Pennsylvania enforced the fugitive slave law, but as a result, many northern states passed personal liberty laws against this.
Tappins, Garrison, and 60 other delegates met in Philadelphia and founded the American Anti-Slavery Society. This society was the basis for what abolitionism was to become. As a result, it gained moral and financial support shortly after its founding in 1835. The society did not only promote the abolition of slavery, but it also founded the first racially integrated educational center, the Oneida Institute, in the 1840s.
Abolitionist literature started to appear around 1820. Anti-slavery propaganda was produced in large number during this time. Anti-slavery articles and pictures were published in the newspapers. Publicans advertised abolitionist rallies, fairs, songs, and even appeals to children and women were created.
This abolitionist movement achieved sectionalism among the states, and the anti-slavery feel it created would eventually lead to the Emancipation Proclamation. Overall, slavery was one of the main factors that led to the bloodiest war in American history, the Civil War. The message from this period, from 1815 to 1850, was the strive for equality between both blacks and whites. This period also created tension among women who felt they were mistreated by the government, which would lead to the women's rights movement in the early 1900s.